I'm done, Linda. I want someone younger. Mark's words pierced the hush of the ballroom, louder than the music that had just faded and sharper than the knife poised over the cake. Linda Harper's hand trembled, frozen mid-slice. 30 years of marriage, and on the night meant for celebration, she found herself the centerpiece of a humiliation she never saw coming. All eyes turned, catching the tension in the air like the scent of wilting roses. Linda stood in the warm glow of chandeliers, her silver hair swept artfully back, deep blue dress hugging her figure with understated grace. Guests murmured, clinking glasses suspended halfway to lips. Beyond the crowd, Grace watched with quiet worry, her gaze pledging silent support. If you're still here, welcome to Voice of Jenna, a place where stories aren't just told, they're felt. Here, we dive into real emotions, family drama, quiet heartbreaks, unexpected twists, and the moments that change us. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you what happened next. Linda felt the weight of 3 decades anchor her feet to the parquet floor. Her marriage hadn't always been easy. No marriage built on real life, aging, and ordinary routines ever is, but betrayal was something she'd managed to push from her mind. Now it stared her down with cold intent, reflected back in Mark's distant eyes. A bead of sweat traced its way down her neck. She lifted her chin with a poise she didn't yet feel. "This is how you end it, Mark?" Her voice was low, sharp with disbelief and a hint of anger that shimmered beneath the surface. Mark's jaw hardened. "Linda, don't make a scene," he muttered, though the scene was already made, and he was its author. He straightened his suit jacket, the gesture practiced and meaningless. "I've thought it through. I need something different." Linda caught a flash of movement. Vivian, Mark's mother, smirking from the sidelines, eyes flicking between her son and the stunned faces in the hall. Something in that glance made Linda's stomach knot. This was planned, orchestrated, not a spontaneous eruption. A waiter quietly backed away, his tray of champagne suddenly too heavy. Grace slipped closer, her hand brushing Linda's elbow. "You don't have to stand for this. Not tonight or ever," she whispered. Linda almost choked on the mix of panic and pride inside her chest. She wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, old memories flickered, late nights folding laundry with Mark, the gentle pressure of his hand after funerals and family storms, the time he surprised her with tulips from the market when she was sick. Could this really be the same man? She heard herself think, "You are not just the sum of his choices. You are more than the years spent waiting, forgiving, hoping." The celebration continued in awkward waves around her, some guests feigning laughter, others craning for more drama. Linda's niece snapped a discreet photo from the corner, capturing the moment of collapse. The ballroom now felt like a stage, every painted wall echoing with the judgment of strangers. Mark's friends gathered, whispering in tight knots. Vivian approached, voice low and syrupy. "Linda, do be reasonable. This isn't the time or place." Her words stung, loaded with implication. Linda steadied herself, fingers tightening on her clutch. "Respect is never about time or place, Vivian. Not after 30 years. The taste of betrayal was bitter, but alongside it was something else, simmering under her skin. A quiet, gathering storm of determination. She glanced at Grace, whose steady presence was a reminder that she was not alone. Not really, not anymore. Linda cleared her throat, consciously smoothing any weakness from her voice. "You want someone younger, Mark? All these years, what was I, a placeholder?" Mark's retort died in his throat, for once caught without an answer. Linda let the tension thrum through her body, letting it fuel her rather than pull her apart. She could feel the judgment in the room, but she could also sense something turning, a ripple of sympathy, outrage, and maybe even respect. She remembered her mother's words, spoken decades ago as Linda wrestled with her first hard loss. "Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's just standing where you are and refusing to move." Mark moved awkwardly, clearing his throat, looking to Vivian for support. The party had become an arena, and Linda was center stage, but now she chose her lines. I'm not leaving tonight, Mark. Linda's voice was sure, each word deliberate. I deserve at least one evening of dignity, and I'll take it. And in that moment, the moment between humiliation and resolve, the narrative shifted. Linda wasn't just reacting, she was reclaiming. The air buzzed with possibility, darker than before but alive with the promise that this night, and the betrayal sewn into it, was only the beginning. She closed her eyes against the surge of panic. Tomorrow, she would confront the truth. Tonight, she would stand in the storm and let the world see she could weather it. The celebration shuddered forward, music rising in the background, Linda's figure steady and resolute in the golden light. An image burned into every mind present. The story, it was clear, had only just begun. Linda woke to the gentle light of dawn filtering softly through linen curtains, casting warm, fragile patterns across her bedroom walls. The faint scent of freshly brewed coffee curled in from the kitchen, mingling with the distant hum of morning city life. Her old home, nestled within an upscale neighborhood, held decades of memories woven into every corner, but this morning felt different, tinged with an unspoken tension. Moving quietly, Linda slipped into the kitchen where the familiar clang of china and the soft bubbling of water waiting to boil grounded her. She poured a cup of tea, the steam swirling upward like her unsettled thoughts. The day ahead should have been ordinary. A glance at the news, a chat with Grace, her steadfast friend, but the air was thick with something unsaid. When Grace arrived, her presence was a comforting anchor amid the subtle unease. The two women embraced with the ease of decades-long friendship, their smiles warm but eyes betraying worry. "You seem miles away," Grace said gently. Linda offered a small, tired smile but made no immediate reply. Inside, she was a storm of conflicting emotions, hurt from last night's revelation, confusion about what was real, and a flicker of fierce determination she barely recognized. Grace brewed fresh coffee as their conversation drifted from neighborhood gossip to Linda's tentative plans for a new book. Yet beneath the surface, words danced around the elephant in the room. Mark, whose absence was felt like a hollow ache. "Do you think he regrets last night?" Grace asked carefully. "Or was it all calculated?" Linda's gaze drifted to the window where early blossom petals fluttered to the ground. "I don't know what I think anymore," she answered softly. "But I do know I won't let this define me." The words felt like a secret vow, a promise to stake her claim on hope amid betrayal. The day unfolded with quiet moments layered over with subtle threats of conflict. Neighbors' knowing glances masked as casual smiles. The barista who paused just a heartbeat too long offering condolences through sympathetic eyes. Even the walls seemed whispering conspiracies, their cracks catching shadows that refused to settle. Mark's brief, guarded appearance that evening unsettled the fragile peace. His words were clipped, his tone measured but cold. "We need to talk," he said, as though sealing an unspoken contract of distance. Linda nodded, steady even as her heart pounded uneven rhythms of fear and resolve. As twilight fell, Linda sought refuge in her garden. The fragrant jasmine bushes swayed gently in the cool breeze, the night alive with the hum of cicadas. Sitting on the worn wooden bench, she let the dark comfort her and sharpen her thoughts. She remembered the vibrant young woman she had been, filled with dreams that now seemed entwined with the broken promises of years past. But beneath the quiet sadness stirred strength, resilience forged through struggle and love. This was not the end of her story, but the painful beginning of transformation. Whatever lay ahead, Linda's spirit was awakening, undaunted and unbowed. With the stars overhead blinking like distant hopes, she whispered into the night, "Tomorrow, I choose myself." The garden scent wrapped her like a gentle cloak, a reminder that even in ruin, life holds beauty and the seeds of renewal. The sound of the phone ringing late into the night was both unexpected and jarring. Linda's hand trembled as she reached over to answer, the dim glow of her bedside lamp casting more shadows than light. On the other end, Mark's voice was clipped, but unmistakably urgent. "Mom's coming over tomorrow. We need to discuss some things," he said, the weight behind his words pressing through the line. Linda's mind raced. Vivian's visits were never simple. They came with strings and heavy intentions veiled behind polite smiles and thinly veiled disdain. She remembered last year's tea party, where a seemingly innocent comment about grandchildren turned into a pointed argument about family roles. The thought of another encounter stirred a familiar unease in her chest. The next morning dawned gray and heavy, mirroring Linda's mood. Vivian arrived impeccably dressed, her presence filling the room with a cold formality. The decorations in the living room, crisp floral arrangements and polished antiques, seemed to emphasize the unspoken power Vivian wielded within this family. Linda welcomed her with a measured smile, but inside, tension knotted her stomach. The conversation began with surface pleasantries, but soon edged into sharper territory. Vivian's questions about the condo were thinly veiled explorations designed to unsettle. "Is the property still in your name, Linda? I trust you're considering your options," she remarked, eyes steady and calculating. Linda's fists clenched beneath the table as she responded evenly, "Yes, I have sought legal advice, and I'm fully aware of my rights." The exchange was more than fiscal, it was a battle for respect and dignity. Later, Mark's arrival, tense and brief, did little to ease the brewing storm. His eyes darted towards Vivian subtly, a silent alliance deepening the divide. "Mom just wants what's best," he said, though the words felt hollow, a justification for the betrayal unfolding. Throughout the day, Linda's world felt tilted. Calls with Grace were clipped but supportive, their whispered strategizing a lifeline amid the emotional upheaval. Linda found herself torn between shock and gathering strength, her thoughts spinning like tangled vines. At night, she stared at Mark's empty chair across from her, the chasm between them widening with every unspoken word. Memories of shared joys and dreams flashed alongside fears of loss and isolation. "Is this what our 30 years have come to?" she thought bitterly. But within the turmoil, a quiet resolve flickered, a growing awareness that this fight was not just for property or pride, but for her very self-worth. The tension hummed in the air, a prelude to the storm that would soon shatter the fragile equilibrium of their lives. Linda's reflection in the mirror bore a woman transformed, scarred but unbroken, ready to face the battles ahead with an unexpected fierce grace. The seeds of climax had been planted, and with them, the rising storm of confrontation, revelation, and ultimately, reclamation. Linda's world spun faster than she could catch, every moment stretching tight with tension. The morning's gray sky seemed to press down on her smaller apartment, its walls a reminder of the shrinking space she now inhabited emotionally. Thoughts from the previous night clawed at her peace, the voices, the glances, the uneasy alliance forming between Mark and his mother. It was no longer just discontent. It was a brewing storm. Her phone buzzed sharply beside the coffee cup, a message from Grace. "We need to talk." Important. The brevity only tightened the knot inside Linda's chest. When Grace arrived, her worried eyes reflected the turmoil Linda felt, but tried to hide beneath calm words and tenderness. "You're not alone, Linda, whatever comes," Grace insisted gently over their shared meal. "But you have to decide where you stand." Linda nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "I thought I knew exactly where, until everything shifted. It's like I'm watching from the outside, powerless." That afternoon, the doorbell's unexpected ring startled her. Vivian's polished smile greeted Linda's tentative one. "I thought it best to talk," Vivian announced, stepping inside with the air of someone accustomed to control. Her gaze swept the modest decor, the photographs of family now tinged with an eerie familiarity. Their conversation was a chess match veiled in pleasantries, each question weighted beneath its surface. "I hear the condo is your sole property now," Vivian remarked casually, eyes sharp. "Are you prepared for what the future holds?" Linda's heart pounded, but her reply was steady. "I'm prepared to protect what's mine." Vivian's lips thinned, her poised facade momentarily faltering. "Mark is merely seeking happiness. You should too." Days blurred as Linda's resolve hardened. Mark's brief visits delivered hollow promises tangled with accusations. He was a man caught between worlds. Linda, a woman waking to her own strength. Late one evening, Grace spotted Linda in the garden, her silhouette bathed in moonlight, memories and fears dancing in her eyes. "Every step forward is tangled with the past," she whispered. "But we walk them anyway." Within her quiet battles, Linda felt the tides turning, the personal stakes rising with every whispered conversation, every calculated glance. The fractured trust was more than a crack. It was an abyss to cross. Her reflection caught in the window showed a woman transformed, scarred but steadfast. Tomorrow would test her further, but tonight, beneath the soft rustle of leaves, hope flickered defiantly in the dark. Linda sat quietly in her garden, watching the soft sway of blooming roses as the late afternoon sun cast golden streaks across the yard. The peaceful scene was lined with echoes of complex relationships and hidden tensions that had been growing, threading beneath the surface of her life like an unseen storm. It was not just the crumbling of her marriage to Mark Collins. There were the deepening fractures in friendships, the unspoken alliances, and shadows cast by family secrets. Tonight, her world felt like it teetered on the edge of revelation. Grace, who had become her unwavering pillar, arrived that afternoon bearing a basket filled with homemade bread and comforting smiles. They settled on the porch, the air ripe with the scent of fresh earth and brewing tea. As Grace adjusted the blanket around her shoulders, Linda sensed the weight pressing behind her friend's gentle words. "There's more going on than just Mark's decisions," Grace said quietly. "I've noticed how Vivian has been steering conversations, sowing doubt not just with you, but among the neighbors too." Linda took this in, her thoughts flooding with fresh memories of whispered phone calls, the barbed tone of Vivian's questions during her last visit, the fleeting glances Mark shared with his mother that spoke volumes of collusion. Her own emotions faltered between anger and disbelief, yet beneath them, a rising tide of clarity. Meanwhile, Linda's son, David, had begun drifting away, caught up in his own conflicts, but unable to bridge the growing chasm with his mother. Their last phone call was curt, weighed with unvoiced accusations and an underlying sadness that left Linda feeling achingly alone. "He's scared," she muttered to herself. "But he's also caught in their web." At the heart of her trials stood Mark's latest plans, ones Linda only caught glimpses of through shadowed confrontations and veiled threats. A subplot unfolded here, Mark's quiet attempts to dismantle her support system, casting a net of social isolation. Friends wavered, divided between loyalty and fear, deepening Linda's sense of vulnerability. Yet, from this came unexpected currents of hope. A new neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, began reaching out with genuine kindness, inviting Linda into community events and offering a listening ear. This gentle friendship became a beacon amid the gathering darkness, reminding Linda that even fractured lives could find new paths. These intertwined personal struggles heightened the emotional stakes as Linda wrestled with decisions that could fracture her family forever. Could she hold on to David? Would her community stand by her? And how deeply had Vivian's influence spread? The tension rippled through every interaction, at the grocery store, at church, even on the morning walks Linda took to clear her mind. The scent of damp leaves underfoot, the cool breath of autumn air, the rustle of sparrows, each detail wrapped the story in sensory richness, grounding it amid human frailty and strength. And through it all, Linda's inner dialogue surged. "I cannot let them win. This is my family, my life, and I will fight for it." With every passing day, the stakes climbed higher, a family's love challenged, loyalties tested, and secrets threatening to unravel beneath the fragile veneer of civility. The stage was set, not just for a personal reckoning but a battle that would define the heart of everything Linda held dear. As the sun dipped behind distant hills, Linda felt the weight of what was lost and the fragile hope of what might yet be saved. Tomorrow loomed large, a day promising confrontation, clarity, and perhaps catharsis. But for now, surrounded by the soft murmur of evening, she sat steady, resolved, unbowed, and quietly fierce. Linda's breath hitched as the truth unfolded like a dark shadow cutting across the fragile hope she had been nurturing. Mark's betrayal was more than cold words or a sudden shift. It was a carefully played game, laced with cunning and cruelty she hadn't fully grasped until now. His alliance with Vivian and the subtle manipulation of those around her showed a strength not just of will, but of a cold, calculated intent that left Linda staggered. Sitting alone in the quiet of her living room, the evening light casting long shadows on the walls, Linda's mind replayed every secret conversation she had overheard, every veiled look exchanged behind her back. The betrayal wasn't just about Mark's desire for someone younger. It was about control, power, and the dismantling of everything she had built. Her heart ached not just with sorrow, but with the sting of being outmaneuvered. Memories flooded her. Late nights spent trying to fix what was breaking, the whispered promises, the small acts of kindness that now felt like a mask hiding something darker. Her internal dialogue was a tumultuous storm. How could he? Why now? Was she ever enough? The answers eluded her, leaving questions that echoed in the emptiness. Yet amid the crushing weight of betrayal, a flicker of defiance stirred. Linda knew she had a choice, to be broken or to rise, to let the darkness consume her or to fight her way back into the light. Grace's voice came softly from the past, reminding her she wasn't alone, that strength could be found in the ashes of pain. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal consultations, whispered plans, and quiet determination. Rachel, the family lawyer, became a beacon of clarity in the chaos, guiding Linda through the labyrinth of rights and protections. Conversations were tough and sometimes exhausting, but each step forward built a wall against the encroaching storm. Meanwhile, Vivian's cold presence loomed large, her subtle provocations aimed not just at Linda, but at anyone who would dare support her. Mark's absence grew longer, his calls more evasive, as he retreated into the safety of his new alliances. The emotional stakes surged, Linda's world narrowed to a fierce focus on survival and justice. Throughout it all, Linda's reflections deepened. The betrayal was more than a personal wound. It challenged her understanding of love, trust, and identity. The journey ahead was no longer just about reclaiming possessions or status, but about redefining herself on her own terms. The rising action moved steadily toward a climax that promised confrontation, revelation, and the possibility of redemption. Linda's spirit, though battered, burned brighter, a testament to resilience forged in pain and tempered by hope. In quiet moments, she'd look out over the garden, the scent of jasmine mixing with twilight's chill, whispering to herself a promise. This is not where my story ends. It is only the beginning of my strength. Linda sat quietly in her favorite armchair, the soft evening light filtering through lace curtains and casting delicate patterns on the worn fabric. The events of the past weeks weighed heavily on her, swirling inside like a tempest she could neither calm nor escape. Memories, sharp and bittersweet, unfolded with a clarity that surprised her now. The laughter shared in sunlit rooms, the whispered dreams they once harbored, and the subtle cracks creeping unnoticed beneath it all. She recalled the early days of their marriage, when Mark's smile was a promise and their hands fit together like puzzle pieces. That hopeful young woman had believed in forever, her heart an open book. Now, the book was dog-eared and stained, its pages riddled with betrayal and quiet compromises. And yet beneath the sorrow lay a fragile seed of strength, quietly growing in the soil of pain. Linda's inner dialogue was a steady drumbeat of reflection and resolve. Could she forgive the man she once loved? Did she even want to? The answers were tangled in the knots of trust and heartbreak. But what had become unmistakably clear was her refusal to be diminished by his choices. The garden outside stirred with the scent of jasmine and damp earth, sensory reminders of life cycles, birth, decay, and renewal. The world moved beyond her pain, relentless and indifferent, yet she found herself yearning to move with it, to grow beyond this fracture. Grace's voice was a tether, steady and warm, pulling Linda back from the depths of despair. You're not just surviving, Linda. You're becoming. That's strength. Their conversations deepened, weaving threads of hope through the fabric of struggle. Plans took shape, legal consultations, gathering evidence, fortifying boundaries. Each step was a reclamation, a declaration that she will not be erased. Foreshadowing the final confrontation, Linda felt a stirring in her bones, a sense that the moment when truth would break free was drawing nearer. Her emotions were raw, layered with fear, anger, and an undercurrent of fierce determination. The woman she was becoming was not the one who would stand silently as her life was unraveled. This chapter of reflection was also one of rebirth. The theme of resilience, how pain could shape but not define her, echoed through every memory and whispered plan. Linda's character arc advanced from silent endurance to empowered resolve, setting the stage for the storm that was to come. As twilight deepened, Linda closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of the garden and the quiet promise of dawn. "I am more than this moment," she whispered, "and soon they will all know it too." The journey was far from over, but in this moment of solitude, Linda embraced a hard-earned peace, a calm before the final, defining storm. Linda stood at the edge of her kitchen table, fingertips tracing the worn wood surface, as if seeking strength from its steadfast presence. The decision to finally take action against the unraveling of her life wasn't sudden. It had been simmering beneath the surface, growing fiercer with every slight, every whispered conspiracy, every fracture in what once was an unbreakable bond. "You're ready for this, Linda." Grace's voice broke through her thoughts one afternoon. They sat across from each other with legal papers spread between them, their coffee cooling untouched. "You have to be. Mark isn't going to give up easily. Neither should you." Linda nodded, a flicker of steel igniting behind her weary eyes. "I can't let him write the ending to my story," she said quietly. "It's time to fight, not with anger or tears, but with resolve and strategy." The days that followed were a blur of preparation. Linda met with Rachel, her family lawyer, peeling back layers of legal jargon to reveal the protections she could claim. They scrutinized financial documents, gathered evidence, and mapped out approaches to counter Mark's maneuvers. Rachel's steady expertise was a balm, transforming confusion into actionable steps. In the quiet moments, Linda rehearsed conversations, her voice gaining clarity and strength. "I deserve respect. I will protect what's mine." The words were mantras, bolstering her spirit. Mark's absence only deepened the mystery. When he did appear, his smiles were forced, his words clipped but laced with veiled threats. Vivian lurked nearby, her presence like a cold shadow, the unspoken alliance between mother and son tightening the noose around Linda's hopes. Grace observed it all, her concern growing, but her support unwavering. "You're not alone," she reminded Linda during one late-night call. "We have a plan. You're stronger than you know." Linda's home transformed into a command center of sorts, a place of quiet resistance. Walls once lined with memories now held legal notices, calendars marked with court dates, and stacks of documents bearing the weight of her fight. The garden outside remained a sanctuary, a reminder of resilience in nature's steady cycles. The theme of reclaiming identity echoed louder in her thoughts. No longer the silent partner, Linda was becoming a force defined by courage and calculated action. Her transformation rippled through every decision, each step closer to confrontation a testament to growth born from hardship. The rising tension was palpable. The final confrontation loomed, a crucible where truth, justice, and personal strength would collide. Linda's internal resolve burned bright, guiding her through nights shadowed by doubt toward the dawn of a new chapter. In one poignant moment, she caught her reflection in the window, eyes fierce, posture proud, the quiet promise clear. This battle was hers to win. The courtroom was thick with anticipation, every seat filled with expectant faces, friends, family, and strangers bound by their curiosity. The polished wooden panels gleamed under the harsh lighting, shadows playing across stern faces and glinting eyes. Linda stood near the witness stand, her hands steady, but her heart hammering a fierce rhythm. This was the moment she had prepared for, the culmination of months of turmoil and strategy. Mark sat across the room, his expression unreadable behind a veil of cool detachment. Beside him, Vivian's gaze pierced like a blade, her lips curled into a smirk that dared Linda to falter. The judge, an imposing figure robed in black, called the court to order with a crisp bang of the gavel. As Rachel, Linda's attorney, rose to address the court, her voice carried a calm intensity that commanded attention. "Your Honor, we are here not just to divide assets, but to uncover truth obscured by deception." She shot a pointed look at Mark. "The defendant has engaged in a calculated campaign to undermine my client, both publicly and personally." The room buzzed with a low murmur as Rachel began presenting evidence, messages, financial discrepancies, and witness testimonies that painted a picture far from the polished facade Mark projected. Each revelation was a strike, the courtroom a battleground where courage met cunning. Linda's thoughts whirled beneath the surface, every accusation a sting yet fueling her resolve. She remembered the moments before the storm, the whispered phone calls, the deceptive smiles, the quiet solitude broken by loyal Grace's support. She faced her past and present with a fierce clarity. During cross-examination, Mark's attorney attempted to unsettle Linda with cutting questions, challenging her character and motives. But Linda met each volley with composed defiance, her voice steady, eyes unwavering. "I stand here not out of bitterness, but out of necessity," she declared, "to reclaim the dignity and respect I have earned." The tension soared as Vivian was called to the stand. The once composed matriarch faltered under scrutiny, her carefully constructed defenses crumbling in the face of pointed inquiries. The room held its breath when Linda herself took the stand, her narrative unfolding with raw honesty and poise. Outside the courtroom, soft rain began to fall, the patter against windows a poignant counterpoint to the heated drama within. Sensory details, the click of heels on marble, the sharp intake of breath, the weight of silence before truths spilled, wove through the scene, immersing all in the unfolding climax. As closing arguments drew near, Linda felt a transformation within. The woman who entered this room was not the same who faced the betrayal months ago. She was tempered by trial, stronger in spirit and clearer in purpose. The judge's eyes settled on her as he prepared to deliver his verdict, the air electric with anticipation. This confrontation, emotional, physical, and intellectual, marked the turning point not just in the legal battle, but in Linda's journey toward reclaiming her life and identity. The courtroom drama, rich with passion and courage, was the crucible where fractures were exposed and forged anew, a foreshadowing that no matter the outcome, Linda's story would be one of resilience and profound transformation. The courtroom fell deathly silent as Linda rose, her every step measured and deliberate. All eyes, from the judge to the silent spectators, were fixed on her, a woman transformed not just by adversity, but by a fierce, unyielding resolve. The past months of pain, betrayal, and painstaking preparation had led to this moment of reckoning. Mark sat opposite her, his usual veneer of control cracking under the intensity of the moment. Vivian's watchful gaze was sharp with silent calculation, but Linda felt nothing but clarity. This confrontation was no longer just about property or pride. It was the final chapter of a story rewritten by strength and truth. Her voice rang clear and steady as she addressed the court, laying bare the layers of deception and hurt. "For too long, I was silenced by loyalty and fear. Today, I speak not to break, but to reclaim." Each word was a release, a step toward freedom and self-worth. The revelations that followed stunned the courtroom, hidden debts uncovered, manipulative schemes revealed, and the true extent of Mark's disloyalty exposed. Witnesses called by Rachel corroborated Linda's claims, their testimonies a chorus affirming her truth. As Mark's defenses faltered, the emotional weight in the room shifted. Gasps and whispered support filled the space as Linda stood unflinching, a beacon of resilience. The judge nodded gravely, acknowledging the courage it took to confront such pain openly. After hours of tense argument, the verdict rendered was both justice and liberation. Linda retained her assets and reclaimed her dignity. Mark's world, once built on arrogance and deceit, crumbled under the weight of truth and consequence. Outside the courthouse, a gentle rain washed over the city streets, an echo of renewal and closure. Linda's heart, once heavy with betrayal, now swelled with a bittersweet triumph. The woman who emerged from this battle was no longer defined by loss but by empowerment. In a quiet moment, Linda's eyes met Grace's in a knowing glance of shared victory. "This isn't just an end," Linda whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's the beginning of everything I deserve." The story closed on the cusp of new beginnings, proof that even in the darkest storms, the human spirit can rise, healed and unbreakable. Linda stood at the threshold of a new dawn, her heart still heavy but her spirit unshackled from the weight of betrayal. The courtroom battle was over. Mark's schemes unraveled and justice had been served. Yet, the true resolution stretched far beyond legal verdicts. It was etched into the very core of her being, a transformation born from fire and faith. In quiet moments, Linda reflected on the tapestry of her journey. It wasn't just about reclaiming assets or confronting deceit, it was about reclaiming herself. The woman who had once whispered dreams of forever had emerged into a fierce, grounded force, resilient and fiercely unapologetic. Her grief had opened space for growth. Her anger had seeded courage. The aftermath rippled through the lives of those around her. Mark, stripped of his power, faced the consequences not only in court but in fractured relationships and the glaring light of public reckoning. Vivian's silent retreat marked a quiet surrender, the web she had spun now broken. Linda's son David reached out tentatively, the wound between them healing with honest conversation and renewed understanding. Grace remained a steadfast companion, not just a friend, but a witness to Linda's evolution and the promise of brighter chapters ahead. Dialogues that once held blame and hurt transformed into conversations of compassion and clarity. "I never wanted to lose you," David confessed one afternoon, voice thick with regret. "But I needed to see your strength, to know you were fighting for us all." "I fought for me," Linda replied softly, "and in doing so, I found us." The themes that had woven through Linda's story, resilience, self-discovery, the power of reclaiming one's voice, now blossomed fully into revelation and peace. The emotional catharsis was profound yet tender, a testament to the enduring human capacity to heal and thrive. As she stepped into the sunlight of a new chapter, Linda felt a quiet joy. The scars remained, but they were now part of her mosaic, a beautiful, intricate story of survival, strength, and the unyielding quest for truth. The journey had closed some doors but opened others, each step forward a promise that no matter what had been lost, the future was hers to shape, bravely, boldly, and free. Linda stood at the window, the soft dusk light painting her garden in hues of gold and lavender. The scents of jasmine and fresh earth mingled in the cool evening air, grounding her in this moment of quiet reflection. The long, arduous journey that had begun in betrayal now found its gentle close in resilience and new beginnings. She had faced the unthinkable, the unraveling of a marriage, the cold calculations of those once closest to her, and emerged transformed. The woman who once whispered fragile hopes now walked with quiet strength, her voice reclaimed and her spirit unshaken. The lessons etched deep within her were clear. Courage arises not from ease, but from enduring hardship, and true power lies in self-knowledge and grace. Conversations with Grace and David, once strained and tentative, now unfolded in warmth and understanding. "I see you, Mom," David had said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just what happened, but who you've become." Such moments stitched together the frayed edges of family ties, bridging past wounds with hope. The themes that wove through Linda's story, betrayal, justice, and ultimately, redemption, resonated fully in this closing chapter. The shadows that haunted her had been met and overcome, leaving space for light. Yet, as the stars twinkled overhead, a subtle anticipation lingered. Life's storybooks rarely end with complete finality. New challenges, New joys and unexpected twists awaited just beyond the horizon, beckoning with promise. Linda's final words in this chapter were a soft murmur to the night. I am no longer defined by what was taken, but by all I am yet to give. The garden's fragrance wrapped around her like an embrace, a sensory reminder that after every ending comes a beginning, a story ever unfolding. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Voice of Jenna so you never miss the next chapter in our world of twists, lessons, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world to me, and trust me, the stories only get better from here.